connect. Okay, I have just started recording the webinar, so
Okay,
one more minute
Mm.
for the people to join the webinar, and then I will just very, very briefly introduce you because I don't want to dominate you, and then you will tell us about the idea of comfort zone and how to deal with it.
Right.
Okay, it's 32 right now. We have given additional 2 minutes to whoever would like to wanted to join us a bit later. And of course, I will observe the situation right now as well, so that if there is somebody coming slightly later, I will let them in. Welcome to IATEFL Poland webinar series. I would like to inform you that our 21 by 22 webinar series have already begun. We had 2 webinars in September, and then after the 2 webinars, we had our 30th edition of IATEFL International Conference, so anniversary conference between the 17th and 18th of September, online version. And right now, October is busy webinar time. So the first webinar took place last week, and this webinar is about comfort zone. And we have with us Geoff Tranter, who is a board member and who is the person responsible for Business English SEEK at our organization. And he also is very, very friendly and offers webinars to us on a range of different topics. The first time when I met Geoff, I was inspired by his sense of humor and the way he presented humorous sets from referring to our language teaching lessons at our conferences. And the first picture was a crowded room where everybody wanted to participate in Geoff's webinar, but there was nowhere to sit. Yes, so people sitting on the stairs and a crowded room, but nobody wanted to leave the room because the webinars that Geoff offers to us are really fascinating. So welcome to another fascinating webinar about our comfort zone and how to deal with it. Over to you, Geoff.
Right. Thank you, Lucina. I welcome from me as well to this workshop tonight. I hope you are sitting comfortably within your comfort zone. And one of the advantages of webinars is that you don't have to sit on the steps. You can sit in your own comfortable chair. And I hope everybody has a nice comfortable chair sitting in front of the computer. Since the topic today is beware the comfort zone, and I'm not quite sure what you might have expected behind that topic, especially if I continue with the next slide, which says your comfort zone and their comfort zone, because everybody has a comfort zone. You as a teacher have your comfort zone, and the students you are teaching, they also have their comfort zone. But why beware the comfort zone? Especially when we look at the first quotation, what is the comfort zone? It says here, a situation in which you feel comfortable and in which your ability and determination are not being tested. That sounds quite positive. Another here, this is from Collins Dictionary, the first one was from Cambridge, a situation or position in which a person feels secure, comfortable, or in control. Again, that sounds positive. So why beware? Or a situation, this is the Macmillan Dictionary, a situation, place, or temperature. This is not this time of year anyhow, but it's a temperature that you feel relaxed in. If we look at all those, we could ask the question, that sounds really positive, but is comfort zone a positive concept? Let's look at another example. This is taken from the website www.definitions.net. And there are certain, we don't have to read the whole thing, but there are certain sections in which I have marked. A comfort zone is a type of mental conditioning that causes a person to create and operate mental boundaries. And mental boundaries, there we see something which is perhaps not quite so positive. Such boundaries create an unfounded sense of security. Sense of security is good, but an unfounded sense of security. So we are creating barriers around ourselves in order to create our own sense of security. Continue one more. A person who has established a comfort zone in a particular axis of his or her life will tend to stay within that zone without stepping outside of it. Now we're getting less and less positive because that means the person is not developing. The final marking from that particular quotation or from this definition is to step outside your comfort zone. A person must experiment with new and different behaviors and then experience the new and different responses that occur within their environment. In other words, we're getting out of our everyday experience and opening ourselves to new challenges. And that is perhaps where the problem starts. By the way, I've got the chat line open. So if anybody wants to make a comment during the workshop, a question to me, just put your comment or your question in the chat box and I can try to answer the question or give you a response straight away. So just use the chat box and feel free to use it at any time during the presentation. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So perhaps if you're in your comfort zone, you find it beautiful, relaxing, comfortable, but nothing grows. In other words, you are not growing. And if we apply that to teaching, another quotation, your comfort zone is where good instruction goes to die. So good instruction, we all hope to be good instructors, giving good instruction, goes to die. And we can see that at first glance, positive concept of comfort zones may become more and more negative. And if you actually Google comfort zone for images like I have done here, you will find that many of them are negative. In other words, that is where the title comes from, beware the comfort zone. If you want to develop, beware the comfort zone, your comfort zone, and make sure that your students do not stay in their comfort zone. Otherwise, neither you will be developing, nor will they be developing as well or as fully as they might if they are made to leave their comfort zone. Just an example here, we have various zones. You can see the comfort zone inside the four, or the circle inside the four circles. Comfort zone, you feel safe and in control. Beyond that, there's a fear zone, which is why many people do decide to stay in a comfort zone. If you can get through the fear zone, you come into a learning zone where you are expanding and you can see the concepts which are in the learning zone, dealing with challenges and problems, acquiring new skills, extending your comfort zone. And then we have the growth zone where you find a purpose, you live your dreams, you set yourself new goals and you conquer objectives. So the further you get out of your comfort zone, it may be a problem because you have to go through a certain fear zone, but then you get to a learning zone and a growth zone. So the learning challenging zone looks quite good here. But if we put the same thing into a different context, we can see how the comfort zone can easily become the fear zone. You're doing the same thing, but within a different context, comfort become fear. Just to give you an example outside of teaching for 5 minutes, I hate to take anybody who is from England back to the European Cup final in July, but there was a beautiful example of comfort zone problems when it came to the final minutes of the final between Britain and Italy, or England and Italy. If you remember, it was a penalty shootout, and the first English player scored the goal. The second player scored the goal. The third one hit the post, missed. The fourth one missed. The fifth one missed. And the result was that England did not win the final of the European Cup. And if you look at that from a different perspective, we can see how the comfort zone and the fear zone apply outside of the classroom, because they were playing at Wembley and there were huge expectations, because after 55 years of international cup famine, the people, 60,000 people wanted to see an English victory. All 5 players had been practicing these penalty kicks for years. They were specialists. They were really good. All 5 experienced players. They played in Premier League, Cup Finals, Champions League, but only 2 of them had been on the pitch since the start of the match. One of them came in the second half, but the final 2 were brought in the last minute of extra time as penalty specialists. They hadn't been playing the whole game, just the last minute of extra time. And the 119th minute, they came in as penalty specialists. They were cold, they weren't warm, and 2 of them had hardly played in any of the 6 previous matches during the tournament. And it was a big risk taken by the manager. The 2 players on the pitch since kickoff were successful. They were the first 2. The 3 players brought on as substitutes, and in the last minute, missed the penalty kicks. Why? They were not prepared for being out of their comfort zone, and they were in their fear zone, given the situation I just described. And even the manager, the high expectations on him. And actually, he had exactly the same situation when he was a player. He missed a penalty kick at the Euro 1996. He was aware of the problems. He made them practice, just as teachers make people practice the present simple, the present continuous, week after week after week, and they still get it wrong. And he was probably then not thinking completely logically, because he was out of his comfort zone in this situation because of all the pressure. So he made the wrong decision, and I'm sure teachers also can make the wrong decision, because he was out of his comfort zone and he was in his fear zone that he was afraid they would lose. And if we go through all those, we can see how that applies in many, many parts of our lives, in many areas of our lives. People know context, people have the necessary skills, they all know a task, they were all prepared because they failed because they were in the discomfort zone, a fear zone. They weren't being stretched, they were in the panic zone, the fear zone. There are many expressions for this phenomenon, but the cause is always the same. So we have to expect that there's going to be a small comfort zone. There's a stretch zone where we have to grow. There's a fear zone, or as it's called here, a panic zone. We have a comfort zone, a discomfort zone, an out of comfort zone, when all these things come together to cause problems, lack of development, lack of growth, lack of success. Let's apply that now to language teaching. This is what I'm going to be doing in the next minutes. The comfort zone and the language classroom in general, then the comfort zone from the learner's perspective, because it's their comfort zone as well as your comfort zone, which is point 3, the comfort zone from the teacher's perspective, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. Anything that you want to ask me, any experience that you have, we can just have an open question time at the end. Right, just have a glass of water. Let's move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a number of scenarios which I think are not untypical scenario in the language classroom. Scenario 1 is, at the start of the lesson, you tell the class that you are going to do some listening comprehension practice. A huge groan can be heard around the classroom. I'm sure you have experienced this. Before the internet, before the pandemic, it was the same when the teacher walked into the classroom with a tape recorder. They knew the tape was going to be played and they knew there were going to be problems. And a huge groan came at the beginning of the lesson. So let's look at the reasons why. The first reason is they feel uncomfortable when a recorder is being played, when a tape recorder is being played, because they cannot stop. They cannot stop the recorder. They feel uncomfortable, they feel in a straitjacket because of the fact that they are not in charge of what's happening. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you can say, I'm sorry, didn't understand that. Could you repeat that, please? Or what did you mean by that? But when a tape recorder is being played, or when a cassette is being played, or nowadays when it's being played from the computer, the class can't say, stop it. They are compelled, and they feel straitjacketed because they cannot stop what is happening to them. And this causes, second point, it causes pressure on them. And when we have pressure, just like the footballers, there's a fear of failure, a fear of possible embarrassment because they haven't understood. And they don't know why possibly the teacher is doing this to them. Why do I have to listen to the recorder? Why do I have to listen to the recording? And this takes especially adults back to school, where again the teacher was always in charge and the students just had to do what the teacher said. So all these memories of school, this negative nostalgia, come back, and that leads to the groan, that leads to the fact that they want to stay in the comfort zone that they have achieved. They don't want to be taken out of the comfort zone because with the recording they cannot stop. Then we ask ourselves, so what can we do? We can't, if we know the problem, how can we deal with the problem? And here are a number of strategies you can use in order to help people get out of this self-imposed comfort zone and go into the learning zone, the stretch zone, where they are going to develop their language skills, they're going to grow in terms of their language competence. So the strategies for this particular situation could be, first of all, we need to tell them why. As I said on the left-hand side, in the left-hand box, they don't know why you as a teacher are doing it to them. Explain the practical relevance, explain what can happen in real life situations where they are compelled to listen and cannot ask for a repeat. Secondly, they don't know perhaps what they are going to listen for. They just have to listen. So it does say, and course books here are not necessarily helpful. How many course books do you work with where it just says, listen to the tape? It doesn't say what to listen for, it just says listen to the tape. And how often do we in real life just listen without knowing what to listen for? Whenever at the airport, the train station, radio, we always listen for something. We know what we're listening for, but in the classroom, the instruction, listen to the tape, doesn't really give any indication. Another thing that can help is in listening comprehension exercises, let them work in pairs and they can help each other. And it's quite interesting how if two people are listening to the same tape, some of them, one of them will hear and understand things that the other hasn't, and vice versa. So if they work in pairs, they can help each other and they feel less isolated and they feel safer because they are working together. You, of course, as a teacher, must ensure that the task is at the appropriate level. It must asking too many difficult questions. What they should be listening for and the task and the text, they should be at an appropriate level, but not at the exact level, but a little higher. It should be a challenge, because without a challenge, we don't leave our comfort zone, we don't learn. And just for psychological reasons, to enforce the fact that people's comfort zones are expanding, 6 weeks later, you can do exactly the same listening task again, and they will have hardly any problems whatsoever. And then you can say to them, you see, what you did 6 weeks ago is now easy. It was difficult then, it's now easy. This way you can see that you are expanding, that you are making progress in English, that you are now better than you were. Your comfort zone from 6 weeks ago has grown. You are now able to deal with that task that you weren't able to deal with 6 weeks before. So those kinds of strategies will help people to leave their comfort zone, and the initial fear will give way to the feeling, I have made progress. So that was scenario one. Let's look at another scenario. Let's assume that you're running a C2 class, a high-level class, a C2 class that is preparing for the Cambridge Proficiency examination or an examination at the same level. And you find out that all the learners can do all the speaking tasks using language that in general is no higher than B2 in terms of repertoire, complexity, and accuracy. That is strange. It's a problem of all high-level examinations. You can do virtually all the tasks of a C2 examination, the oral task, for example, using B2 language, because B2, you are already independent users. B1 and B2, according to the Common European Framework, means independent use of the language. So you are independent users, you are able to communicate, you are able to solve tasks without having the higher level of competence that C2 requires. So you can do the C2 test activities, test tasks, without giving evidence of C2 language. Let's have a look at the reasons. Why is that the case? Why is it a problem? Why is this scenario a problem? They don't have to go beyond B2. B2 is the comfort zone. Even though it's a C2 class, they use the language that they have. They don't try to force themselves to speak at a higher level. And that is actually what native speakers do. Native speakers don't speak at C2 level the whole time. They speak in a natural way. They use the language which comes to them immediately. But we require from a C2 class taking the C2 examination that they should be using C2 quality language. And that is beyond the normal comfort zone. So we have to make sure that they are getting beyond that. They don't even notice that they have reached a plateau, which often happens. Lots of learners, they see the progress, A1, A2 to B1, and they sometimes even have the feeling that they're not making progress anymore. They reach a plateau, and the plateau is the consequence of the plateau is that they can communicate the whole time, and they don't have the feeling that they need to go any further. To get them to C2, you have to do something. So they are independent users, as you said. They can communicate, they can do tasks quite proficiently at B2 level, and they have basically no idea what B1, B2 means in practical terms. So that is why the comfort zone is a problem there for the learners. What can we do? Again, strategies. We need to explain, first of all, what C2 means. If we don't explain what C2 means, they're never going to get there because they have no idea. It's like the phrase, many ways lead to Rome, but you have to know where Rome is in order to be able to achieve the journey, complete the journey and get there. So we have to explain what C2 is, make it transparent, that is transparency, show techniques for getting there. For example, I have a C2 class at the university. I teach at Dortmund University. I have B2, C1 and C2 classes. And one of my major tasks in C2 is ensuring that they actually use C2 language, giving them techniques. For example, when they do a writing task, I say, right, first of all, write down what you want to write for this particular task, and then take the right-hand mouse button, click on words like get, quick, many, etc., and see what. If you do that, you get a pop-up menu, and the pop-up menu gives you one possibility, which is synonyms, and click on synonyms, and then you will find possible alternatives. This is just one way of showing how that you can get people to find, to attempt to find alternatives for simple words like get, like, a lot of, etc., etc. And it's important that you give examples of, in this case, C2 language. This, of course, would also apply if you are B1 teachers and B2 teachers. If you want to show people what a B1 competence level is or a B2 competence level, there is, you should Google examples of B1 proficiency or examples of C2 proficiency. And if you do that, you'll come to sites that give you examples of such things. There are videos of people demonstrating B1 proficiency in speaking, and there are examples of written tasks with C1, B2, C2, quality texts done by real students, and that to show them what the difference is between B2 responds to this task and a C2 responds to this task. And above all, there's just one word, push. You have to push them. And in my C2 class, I push, 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 because they're not going to get up to C2 without being pushed. That was the second scenario. A third scenario, you have taken on a so-called conversation course or discussion group, only to find out that most of the students are actually unwilling to speak. Now, we have to be careful here, because some people actually do go to conversation courses to listen. And not only to speak, but to listen. And if you have a conversation course expecting people to all talk as much as each other, then that is a mistake. It's just as in real life, not some people talk more and some people talk less. But why are people unwilling to speak? It's not always because they don't want to speak anymore, but there are other psychological problems. For example, many people feel uncomfortable because they're afraid of making mistakes. And making mistakes is a result of leaving my comfort zone. For example, they formulate what they want to say in their heads, and then they say it because that makes it, they feel more comfortable that way. But speaking spontaneously, starting a sentence, not knowing where the sentence will take you, that means leaving my comfort zone. So they say, rather say nothing than embark on a journey where they don't know where language is going to take them and where they may get lost on the way. They may also feel uncomfortable because it's a very unusual situation when they speak in front of 10, 12 or more people in the class. How many people in real life, apart from teachers, that's also real life, but in their real lives outside the classroom, how many people speak to 12 people or more at the same time? It's very unusual. Groups of 2, 3, 4 are the majority. And the rest, it's very unusual unless you're used to public speaking, and then it can be easy. But if for many people, for most people, speaking to more than 2 or 3 people, especially, and this is the third of the 3 bullets here, when the topics are personal, talking about your own personal ideas, your own personal life to people that you only see once a week for the conversation class, is not necessarily something that people want to embark on. And they also feel uncomfortable because they can't always choose a subject and a topic. They can't always choose who they're talking to. And again, that is unusual in real life. We normally we choose to talk when we can talk about the topic that we want to talk about. And very often in these conversation classes, we have to talk about things that we don't want to talk about or don't feel happy talking about. So all these things take them out of their comfort zone in terms of level of language, in terms of the number of people talking to at the same time, in terms of topics. Some topics are in my comfort zone, some are not. What strategies could a teacher apply to try and get over this? For example, we can delegate and agree the choice of topic a week in advance. So next week, what would you like to talk about next week? I can make suggestions as a teacher, but you make a choice of the topic. Or to avoid the large groups, pair work, group work, or train conversation techniques. Very few people know what, for example, small talk is, the kind of talk that happens in conversation classes. Train them in the technique of small talk. And also then you go in the group where appropriate, but not as the teacher, but as a member of the group. So when 2 people in the classroom talking on the topic, you go in at the role of a participant, not as the role of a teacher. And those strategies may help to cause or to bring about a solution to the problems I've mentioned in the box on the left-hand side. Let's take another scenario. My students at the university, at the end of the semester, the university sends them an online evaluation sheet where they can make comments about what has happened in the class and ideas about how what they might have preferred to what the teacher was actually doing. Sometimes the comment can be, why can't we know the topic in advance, and why can't we have the reading texts in advance so that we can prepare for next week? And I'm sure there are many students who, for the same reason, not only students at university, but students in any language class, who for the same reason actually look at the next chapter before the lesson, before you get there yourself, because they don't want to be in a situation where it's zero knowledge, where they have to suddenly deal with things that they may not understand. So we have these problems. I think somebody has their microphone open. Is it Monali? Have you got your microphone open? Perhaps you can mute it because we have the background noise at the moment. Thank you very much. I think that will help. Sounds much better. Thank you very much, Monali. Yes. So why do they want to know in advance what's going to happen in the next lesson? Surprises. Surprises can take them out of their comfort zone. They're in the fear zone because it might be something that they can't do. There's the fear of overload. It might be too difficult for them. It might require too much knowledge of the content. It might be knowledge of language. They're afraid that they may not be able to contribute. And there's also the feeling I want to be in control. In one of the other scenarios, I mentioned that they're in a straitjacket. If they can't, if something is coming and they don't know what it's going to be, then they are perhaps not longer in control. And many adults, especially the adult education group sector, many adults like to be in control of their lives and don't like to be out of control, because that again takes them out of their comfort zone. But with that, being out of their comfort zone is the way to development, but they don't necessarily know that, or they are frightened of it. There are, of course, also students who have a lack of self-confidence. That is another reason, but it's not going to help them to give them everything in advance, especially the reading texts. It's not going to help them if they've been able to read the text at home first, because it's not authentic. When in real life we have a text in front of us, nobody gives us the text a few days before the actual need. They give it to us at that moment. If you're in, for example, if you're working in an office and the boss says to you, I don't understand this English text, can you have a look at it for 5 minutes and then tell me more or less what the text contains? Then I have to do it. It doesn't give it me 5 days in advance, it perhaps gives it me 5 minutes in advance. So how can we deal with this desire to know what's going to happen in class before the class starts? Possible strategies are, we explain it's real life. Just as I mentioned a few moments ago with the boss, it's real life to have the text in front of us at the moment when we need it, and not to have it in advance. And we have to explain that if you want to get to B1, B2, BC1, you have to accept this. And if you don't, then you will never get to a higher level of competence. And we have to explain that there are different reading strategies. Detailed reading, just general reading. We'd read in sometimes just to know what the text is about. We read things that we don't even know every word, but we can get the general gist from just reading the text. All these different strategies need to be explained, and people need to know that certain text do not need to be understood in full. It's enough if we can understand 60%, 70%, and that is a kind of task, reading comprehension task, which takes people beyond their comfort zone, but improves their reading comprehension skills. And again, pair work and group work with texts, ask them to read the text together, ask them to listen to the text together, because then they can help each other. They don't feel isolated, they don't feel on their own, they don't feel that they are left with the risk of not understanding the text. Let's try one more scenario. Continuing from what we just said, the teacher gives the class a reading text that contains words that some of the readers may not have encountered before. Even though these words are really unimportant for understanding the main message, some learners ask for a translation into their first language. And why is that? Fear of missing something. We know as teachers that in many texts, in whatever it's classroom, whether it's a classroom text or whether it's a text in the newspaper or whatever, not every word is really crucial. As long as we understand the main words and get the main content, that is sufficient. But that is something that learners don't understand. They feel they have to be in control, which is the third point in this box on the left. The desire to be in control, because adults like to be in control. And the more you teach business English in companies, when you have managers are always wanting to be in control, and they don't like not being in control. And they have a fear of the unknown, which means a fear that they are going to suffer embarrassment or suffer a problem because they might misunderstand something or they might not understand something. So you can see again how the concept of fear of leaving the comfort zone, which is where they understand everything. Comfort zone is where they're in control. The fear of leaving that means that they don't accept the situation and want a translation. What can we do about that? Again, we explain that is real life. I'm sure it happens to you in your own language. It happens to me as a native speaker of English. I can pick up a good newspaper like The Guardian or The Times or the Financial Times, and I will find words that I don't know, that I as a native speaker don't know. And so and I have to come to terms with that. This happens, especially if you're living abroad, like I'm living in Germany. I've been living here for such a long time. But the language develops, new words come in. One new word that is now very, very prevalent in English situations, whether it's reading text interviews, is the word woke. And woke and wokeness. The first time I heard that, I didn't know what it was. I had to take it from a few contacts, and I suddenly found out what woke and wokeness and wokery means. So it is not something that I need to be afraid of. It's something that I have to be aware of, and I have to have the strategies to deal with that. For example, the strategy of taking the word in the context and looking at possible meanings within that context and training myself. And on the box on the right, you'll see at the bottom, train cue recognition. I can see the cues in the rest of the text, which will help me to work out for myself what a word I haven't seen before actually means. And if the person still insists on a translation, the best way to do that is to paraphrase instead of translating. So explain the word, do not translate, because very often a translation doesn't help because it's not a one-to-one translation. But paraphrasing so that they understand the meaning is the compromise that I'm sometimes prepared to make. But that is only to help them, again, make sure that they leave their comfort zone and develop in terms of language, in this case, in terms of reading skills. Let's try one more scenario. During the phase of free practice, the teacher asks the learners to close their course books. The class protests. I'm sure you will have noticed this in your classes. They don't like having the books closed because they're frightened that they might not understand what you are saying, and to have the book open in front of them give them some kind of security. That is their comfort zone. They can always refer to the book. I do this one with my students, even at B2 level, C1 level. I do this with my students. I give them a text to read. I give them a reason. For example, you are an engineer and you're interested in artificial intelligence, and you see this article and you're hoping for something new. Read the text and say what is new, what is interesting, what is surprising. All right, and then they read the text, and then they're quite surprised when I say, right, turn the paper upside down and tell me what was new, what was interesting, what was informative, what was surprising, what was exciting. Again, something they have to accept, that is real life. They are talking about something that they have read, and they can't simply read the text aloud they are not going to learn much by reading the text from the paper, but by reading it from memory, the short-term memory, they will learn, their oral competence, their speaking competence will increase. There's factors in this protest, the protest at being asked to close their course books. First of all, they like to have the authority of the course book in front of them. They are very authority dependent. It's like many, I always say to my students, look, you have to do this for yourself, because I can't go with you everywhere you go to help out. I'm not your human dictionary. I am perhaps the authority in the classroom who can help, but the authority in the classroom will not be available in real life when you're outside the classroom, or when later in life when you are working at the workplace. They have the feeling of insecurity. They want to have something to hold on to. That is, again, fear of leaving the comfort zone. They're secure in their comfort zone. If I leave them in the comfort zone, they will never learn. They feel they need support in order to be able to exist. They feel of mistakes and failure, because mistakes and failure come from leaving the comfort zone. What can we do? What strategies have we got? Again, tell them why you are doing it. It's an authentic situation. You can't walk around England, if you're on a business trip to England, you can't walk around England with a dictionary in front of you open, or with your course book in front of you. You have to come to terms with the situation that you are by yourself. And if you don't learn that in the classroom, you won't learn it ever. Let's prepare the lessons, give them warn them that you are going to close the books, or ask them to close the books, and train compensation strategies. Help them with techniques, strategies that they can use when they are having a problem. So one of the ways to get people out of their comfort zone and still not be too afraid is to give them compensation strategies, like asking for explanations or trying to paraphrase things that they can't say themselves. There are a number of compensation strategies which are actually now taught in the latest course books available in the market. Train them so that they feel that they have something that they can use should they get into a situation where they are perhaps in need of support, or where there is a possibility that they might make mistakes or communication cannot take place. So those are the ways that I can help them to go beyond the limits of their comfort zone. And the last scenario, the course you're teaching has been running successfully for several semesters. At the beginning of the new semester, the long-term learners get slightly anxious because new people have registered for the course. All right, and certain lack of comfort. They feel uncomfortable because the fear of the unknown, the strangers. They might be better than me. I might not be able to understand them. I can't choose not to talk to the new people. I have to accept them because we are all in this course. And not being able to choose who I talk to is, again, something that doesn't happen in real life. It happens more in the classroom than anywhere else. And so I feel a little uncomfortable, and there's possible competition because I don't know who they are and they might be better than me. What can we do as teachers to help? We must integrate them as quickly as possible. We must have question and answer sessions straight away where people ask each other questions in order to integrate the new learners. So not the teacher talking to the new learners, the new people in this course, but put them into pairs. Third point on my bullet box, immediate pair work, so that they immediately can get to know these people and find out, are they really much better than me, or are they more or less my level? And important thing is the fourth point, to treat them all in exactly the same way, not give any preference to the new learners, not go overboard with my help for the new learners, but to treat everybody equally. So there's no possible competition. Bring them together so that they do feel that everyone is integrated, that nobody is an unknown person. And all these things will help people to accept the situation and move on, and to grow and go beyond the barriers, the borders of the comfort zone which they had the semester before. I want to show you a couple of more scenarios, but not go into it in great detail. You are the teacher of a course with students that display a wide range of abilities. In the belief that you are helping the weaker students, you easify the questions and tasks you give them. And I'm sure we all do this. We give the easy questions to the weaker learners. We give the more difficult questions to the more proficient learners, but you're not helping anybody that way. Even if the weaker learners don't notice, you're not helping them to grow. You're keeping them at the same level. You're promoting the feeling of comfort within the comfort zone. And at some point, may work for a couple of weeks, it may work for a couple of semesters, but at some point they will notice that that the gap between them and the stronger people in the course is getting wider and wider. And then they will suddenly have the shock, and then they may even give up. They will they consider themselves failures because you haven't been supporting them you've been making life easier for yourself by giving the easy students, the weaker students, the easy questions, but you haven't been you're not helping to promote their learning. Another one is your course has reached B1 competence level. They're independent users. Throughout A1 and A2, you and they were able to see progress. But now you have the feeling that progress has more or less come to a standstill. That is a problem that needs to be addressed, and it results from the fact that when you compare A0 when they start with A1, progress is very visible. A1 and A2, it is perhaps less visible, but there are certain things that you can do to show that you have now made progress. But A2 to B1, the visibility of progress becomes weaker. So it's important when you reach B1 competence level, rather like I said in one of the previous scenarios, to push people to make sure that they do go further with their language and drag them out of their comfort zone, or actually, as I did once with mentioned once with the reading text, go back to something you did 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago to show them that progress is being made. Otherwise, they will have the feeling that they're just running on the spot. And it's very pleasant to run on the spot because you don't spend too much energy. You can go on running on the spot, but you don't get anywhere. And the final scenario is you are persuaded by your director of studies to unwillingly take on a course in English for engineering. It could be English for business, it could be English for mathematics, for physics, whatever, and find yourself studying engineering manuals and learning vocabulary lists by heart before every lesson. I don't know how many of you actually do English for specific purposes, but ESP is a very interesting, challenging, but very interesting area to teach. I have been doing now at university B2, C1, C2 level for 10 years. I have learned a tremendous amount about engineering, about social sciences, about I now have a course for urban planning. It's a B2 course for urban planners. And I am learning a lot about urban planning, which I find interesting in itself. It's interesting for my everyday life. I know far more now about how to plan a city, and I can talk to people in the city about the way a city is planned far more easily because of my knowledge that I have acquired from them. And so if you are ever given the opportunity to take an ESP course, whether it's engineering, mathematics, whatever, jump at it. But do not study engineering manuals, and do not try to learn vocabulary lists by heart before every lesson, because that is not the way to do this. I can't go into the whole philosophy and the whole approach of ESP teaching, but that is not the way, because then you are doing the work for them. They will not learn engineering, they will English for engineering, and they will not learn a special vocabulary that way. So that is my message there. But that is what I wanted to appeal to you to do take on at least one English for whatever, technical English, business English course, you want ESP course, because you will profit from it and you will learn it, and it will take you out of your comfort zone. Because I've been talking about the comfort zone of students for most of the last 30 minutes, but the teacher has a comfort zone, and that the teacher, you as a teacher, need to grow as well, and not simply stay on the spot, run on the spot and teach 25, 30 years the same way as you did at the beginning. So if we bring all that together, what are the counter strategies to prevent learners remaining inert in their comfort zone? First of all, transparency, explain the context, explain the authenticity, explain why you're doing it, that you are going to help them to go beyond and learn more, to develop in their language skills. Authenticity, show what you are doing is an important skill for real life. That they have to grow, they have to learn more, they have to go beyond their today's skills, so that tomorrow they will be able to deal with more tasks in their professional life or in their everyday life. Equip them with useful tools and resources. For example, let them use their smartphones. Coming back to ESP, if a student doesn't know the word for some device or some piece of equipment in engineering, what would they do in real life in the workplace? They would use their smartphones. So why shouldn't they use their smartphones in the classroom? That helps them, that is the resource they can use in order to compensate for any possible gap there is in their knowledge. And doing that will give them confidence to deal with, more confidence to deal with the tasks they have to do, firstly in the classroom, but secondly in real life. This is something where many of my colleagues at university disagree. They don't like students to use their smartphones in a classroom. I think the smartphones is just as important as 20 years ago a dictionary was. There was always a discussion, should we have dictionaries in the classroom? My opinion was always yes, because a dictionary is a real life work of reference, not only useful in the classroom, but definitely in real life, so that when the teacher is no longer there, we talked about the concept of authority, the teacher can't be everywhere with the students can deal with a situation where there's no teacher to ask. Self-confidence, repeat things at regular intervals. Do what you did 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago for like the semester before, or perhaps the semester before, a regular interval to show people what they have learned, and so develop self-confidence that they are making progress. Give them compensation strategies, 999 emergency strategies, so that they are not simply lost when they go beyond the borders of their comfort zone, but they have the feeling, even if I do go beyond my comfort zone, I'll still be able to cope, because I can do this, this, and this to help me when I need the help. And de-isolate them in the classroom. There are 12 people. There should not be 12 individuals. They should be working regularly in different pairs and in different groups. This, incidentally, is one of the reasons why I love online teaching with Zoom, because I can not only do pair work and group work, I can randomly organize group work. And so when I do 2 or 3 periods of group work in the online classroom, each time the groups are different, and everybody works with everybody at least once, perhaps every week or every second week. So one of the advantages, not many, but one of the advantages of working with Zoom. Right, so those were all about the learner's comfort zone. Now the teacher's comfort zone. You should be a role model. That means, first of all, you should not be a know-all. You should not give the impression or feel that you need to be a person who knows everything. Don't insist on being the know-all. This is why some of my colleagues don't like dictionaries in the classroom, because they prefer the students to ask them for the correct translation and not look up themselves. That is one of the major failings that the ESP teachers may have. They insist, even though they're not engineers, they insist on being the source of vocabulary for engineers. So don't be a know-all, don't insist on being the know-all. Don't insist on perfection. Nobody's perfect. Native speakers aren't even perfect. And especially when they're being spontaneous in a communicative situation. Don't insist on perfection. You as a teacher will make mistakes, not necessarily a morphological mistake of grammar, but definitely occasionally a syntactical mistake. Word order comes, is often different to the order in which your ideas come to you. And so halfway through a sentence, you have an additional idea, but because it's too late, it can't be put back in the perfect part of the sentence where it should be. So don't give the impression that you are perfect, a know-all and perfect. Allow them to be imperfect at times, providing communication takes place. That is always the rider. Communication must take place, but otherwise don't insist on perfection. Be prepared to say, sorry, I don't know. I know quite a few teachers in my, I have quite a few colleagues who would never say, I'm sorry, I don't know, when asked by a student. It's no problem for me. I can say, sorry, I don't know, but I'll find out for the next lesson. So I am prepared to go beyond my comfort zone by saying, I don't know. Perfection is beyond my comfort zone. I don't insist on being the know-all. The expectations that students have that I am the ultimate provider of knowledge, that I reject, and that takes me out of the expected comfort zone. Be prepared to depart from the course book. I know teachers, they go from page 1 of the course book to page 200. Don't leave things out. Don't close the course book, because the course book gives them the feeling they are in charge. The teacher must be prepared to leave the comfort zone of the course book, leave the comfort zone of the planning that he or she has made for that course, for that day, and be prepared to depart and go down a path which develops in the course of the evening or of the morning. Because very often when we depart from the course book, teaching becomes more relevant. It may not be an area where we are 100% in control, but it becomes relevant for the students. So making it relevant by going down the road which they suggest is an important fact. So you have to be prepared to leave your comfort zone in order to meet the needs and interests of your students. Take on special courses, English for special purposes, because that will take you out of your comfort zone and you will benefit and learn from it. And you will benefit and learn for your normal teaching in English for general purposes, because the new situation of not always being completely in control will be an additional advantage for you when you are teaching. Be flexible. Don't stick to your teaching plan. Be prepared to lead your teaching plan. Respond to sensible ideas suggested by the learners. Let the learners participate in the planning and the content. Yes, try out things that you have never tried before. We had to do this. This is another advantage of what has happened with the pandemic. Try out things you've never tried before. We've all had to try new techniques that we didn't even think we would be able to, and it happened virtually overnight 18 months ago. So we were thrown out of our non-technical comfort zone into a discomfort zone of technology, and it worked, and that has taken us further than we could have imagined 2 years ago. So whenever appropriate, take part in the group work. Don't stand aside as the teacher. Go in, leave. Your comfort zone is usually at the front behind the desk. Many teachers consider the desk to be their comfort zone, and they never leave the desk. They never walk in front of the desk. They stay behind the desk, sit down, but don't go into the groups. Always try to take part in the groups, but not as the teacher, but as a participant taking part in any project work that the students may be doing. And show understanding for the situation of the learners. Show that you understand that they are leaving their comfort zone and why it is important. Empathize with them when they are in this difficult situation, because they will profit and you will profit, because they will be making progress because they are more prepared to go along with you in new situations. So there we have the previous transparency showed the student's comfort zone, the learner's comfort zone, here the teacher's comfort zone. So I'll try and bring that all together now. Don't lie to yourself. We have to be honest about what we want and take risks rather than lie to ourselves and make excuses to stay in our comfort zone. It's easy for us to make excuses as teachers, and so it's easy for us to stay in our comfort zone. It doesn't help us to develop as teachers, and it will not be to the advantage of our students. Because the more bottom-up teaching comes, the more students are involved in the planning, in the content, the better it is for them. And so you should not make excuses to try and to prevent that. Second, life always begins one step outside of your comfort zone. Not 2 steps, 1 step at a time. The third quotation, the comfort zone is a psychological state in which one feels familiar, safe, at ease, and secure. You never change your life until you step out of your comfort zone. Change begins at the end of your comfort zone. And we are so, last one, we are so accustomed to the comforts of I cannot, I do not want to, and it is too difficult, that we forget to realize when we stop doing things for ourselves and expect others to dance around us. We are not achieving greatness. We have made ourselves weak. So you as a teacher make yourselves weak if you don't allow your students and enable your students to leave the comfort zone. We can put it a different way. Step out of your comfort zone, top left, bottom left, expand your comfort zone, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The one on the right, I think, is something we should write down every day. The more you stay in your comfort zone, the smaller it gets. The more you leave your comfort zone, the bigger it gets. There are different words. I do like this one, the courage zone. We have the courage to leave our comfort zone. Staying in the middle is the smaller, widening, whether it is the growth zone, development zone, the stretch zone, the courage zone. If we leave there, we can see things I enjoy doing are in the comfort zone. Things I'm afraid of, things I've never tried before, they're in the courage zone. Unexplored territory, opportunity, bravery, adventure, those are the words, those are the concepts which take us further. And if we're applying that to teaching, the question in the red ring on the right-hand side, which zones are your students in? I think you should reflect on this every week. Which zone were your students in this morning or yesterday? And the second question, where does the most learning occur? In the comfort zone? In the stretch zone? We should not reach the panic zone. So that's why I said not 2 steps, but 1 step. We get into the stretch zone, stretch them, and that is where most learning occurs. So ask yourself, it is a good way of reviewing, of evaluating yourself, self-evaluation of your classes as a teacher. Ask yourself, which zones did you put your teachers, put your students in last lesson? And where does the most learning occur? In the comfort zone or in the stretch zone? Right. Thanks for coming, watching and listening. I hope you will now feel more comfortable outside your comfort zone. And the final slide, comfort zone to the left, success to the right, and you can see the road ahead. Okay, thank you very much. We've just about finished on time. If there are any questions or any comments, please put them in the chat box. I'll now take down the PowerPoint. And if you would like to have a discussion, you're very welcome to open your cameras. We can then talk face to face, or please ask any questions. You can open your microphones and put a question, or you can put the question or make a comment in the chat box. Thanks again. I await questions.
Don't be shy. If you have questions, shoot forward with them. So I will give you some time to think about the possible questions. In the meantime, I will just share the screen with you for a moment, just to remind you about the webinars that have already taken place. So the first one, Paweł Śpiewak and Ania Sołtyska, a debate how to make language assessment fair. Then there was Małgorzata Bukowska-Ulatowska, how to go about this new school and academic year. Then there was my webinar about the positive classroom, no matter what. And today's webinar, Geoff's Beware the Comfort Zone. And next week, there will be, at the same time, there will be Rob Howard, Classroom to Boardroom, Preparing Learners for the Workplace. And the final webinar in October will be Bethany Cagnol. That will be on Friday, because I have already confirmed it with her, on Friday, 29th of October, 6 p.m. Some classroom ideas for the upcoming academic year. So these are webinars for October. And now let me stop sharing it with you. And if you have any questions, go ahead. Comments, maybe some comments, whatever. The two comments that I have found is the first one, thank you for your presentation. It was really informative, and I'm sure that each of us got some valuable insights from your presentation. Yes, and motivational aspect as well. I wholly agree with you that we should step out, yes, of the comfort zone. Somebody complained about not getting the certificate from the previous webinar. Just contact Marcin Stanowski about it. On the webpage of IATEFL Poland, there are email addresses of all of us, among others Marcin Stanowski, so just write to him, or to Ania Rogalewicz-Gałucka, who is our senior who takes care of all kinds of organizational matters. So you are encouraged to do so. Okay.
And thank you, Joanna. I hope you enjoy life outside your comfort zone. I'm sure you will. I can only encourage you to do that, because you will find it doesn't hurt. It gives pleasure.
One new message. Okay, thanks. Okay, Geoff, I think that people have expressed their positive feelings about this webinar. They are uplifted. They are ready to celebrate the feeling that coming out of your comfort zone is not so bad, and they will implement this knowledge into their teaching from tomorrow onwards. Yes,
I hope so. Perhaps even at 10 o'clock at night you can start. Yes.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, perhaps see you again at one of our next webinars. Have a good evening and stay healthy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
So,